Okay, we back again live, TKT 901, with a special episode tonight. Have a couple special guests that's going to join in with us. I'm going to go ahead and bring them on in. We're not going to delay tonight because we got probably a lot to talk about. So I'm going to bring our guests in and immediately, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. First, we have a mental health counselor here, and I'll let her introduce herself and kind of give a little bit of the expertise that she has. But before I do that, we are talking about the Tyree Nichols situation and the aftermath of it, the mental part of it, the psychological aspects of it, mental health parts of it. So we brought Miss African Queen on here. I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself. And we also have Makakuvu Ali El Bey here, and he will introduce himself and tell you a little bit more about himself. That's pretty vast also, and he'll be chiming in on today's subject also. So, of course, we have the lovely Miss Latricia Jones here now, and she is my co-host of actually. So you have anything to say before we introduce the guests?
Oh, just hey, how everybody doing?
Okay.
Hello.
All right. All right, Miss African Queen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
tell it. Yeah.
First, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to present. I'm nervous because this is my first time, but we're gonna make it happen. My name is African Queen. I am a mental health professional. Which stands for Master of Social Work. I have about 2 years of experience working in residential. Residential is below the hospital setting. So that's pretty much summary, quick, to the point.
Okay. Nice. All right. We have Makakuvu. I'll let him introduce himself.
Doing the chair. Thank the Most High. I'm Makakuvu Ali El Bey, and I am the Royal Ambassador for the Attica Kingdom Alliance of over 750 kingdoms coming off of the east coast of Al Kibalon, including countries of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Sudan, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. I am also the official high priest for the Universal Zulu Nation of Hip Hop. And I am the legacy builder CEO of the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network. It's an honor to be on this platform, and I appreciate the invitation to participate.
Yes. Okay, so of course, this Tyree Nichols situation here in Memphis, we know what happened based upon a live video that we saw on CNN and several other networks in detail. And I spoke with several people actually in the community, and there became a big concern about the aftermath and the effect of the psyche of the people, some of the people that I've come across, male, female, of African, or even some Caucasians, actually. So, I want to Miss I'll say African Queen. I'll just say Miss Queen to kind of kick us off and because I'm not sure where you want to start on that, but where are you at on that as far as the psychosis of it, the immediate effect of it?
Well, the psychological factor is going to be incorporated when we see fear. When we see the police, what happens? We see fear. And when fear is presented, conflict is going to arise. This is when there can be confrontational between maybe the police officers and the community. This could be conflict maybe within families,
Looks like her
within.
video froze.
I'm frozen. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can now. You're back now.
Okay. So the width, I'm not sure where I left off, but I was just, should I
With
repeat or
fear.
should I proceed?
With the fear part, you left out with fear.
With the fear part, there is fear with the community and the police. That is a problem. When we see the police department, there should not be fear. Then we're also seeing abuse of power of the police, which causes more fear. For example, we have an African American male who was assaulted by the police, who was trusted to protect us. Now, in our minds, we're going to see the police as not safety. We're going to see the police as someone who potentially may unalive us. So that also causes distress on our African American men to know when he walks out the door, will he return home? That is a lot to put on an African American male to say, if I were to get pulled over, I want to call my wife or I want to call my significant other or a friend, mother, father, just to say I love you because I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. Psychologically, that plays on you. When you see the police, you're naturally going to want to look forward, hang on to the steering wheel, and that's a problem. It goes further because our men, African American men, is already attacked by the government. Now they have to even, and then I know, yes, you may say the police is connected with the government. That goes deeper. That's going to go deeper because when you see the police, you fear. Our men should not have to be fear. Our men are attacked by our women. They're attacked by their job. They're attacked by the police, the community. So this is like a huge burden on the Black man that is just added, and it really should not be like that.
Okay, well, let me chime in a little bit on that now, because like when I hear you talk about that, like before in my mental psyche, it was more like if I was being pulled over by a Caucasian officer or officer of a different race, I definitely would have that fear. But when I
Mm-hmm.
saw an African American officer, some of that fear, not all of it would go away, but some would go away. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's a complete fear across the board,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what elevated for me personally. It
Yeah,
elevated
and
for
that,
me
that
personally.
goes to your own race. Now it's to the point where can we trust our own race? And that brotherhood, because I'm looking at two African American men, where's the brotherhood? And as
Right.
we can know that in the Tyree Nichols case, we know that it was personal. So now we're going into abuse of power. So again, that can go into that trust. Can the Black man truly trust the police? Can the Black man truly trust that his brother is going to protect him? I mean, because the Black man has enough to worry about, because now if he worries, okay, if he's pulled over, something's going to happen. What happens to his family? So now we have to think about, even with Tyree Nichols, his baby, I'm not sure if his child was a girl or a boy, but now our child is now grown to grow up without a father. And it goes back to single mothers within the community. So it's so many ways as far as the mental health, mental surroundings that it can go. So it's like a boomerang. The male is the head of the house, but now that man is no longer the head of the house. So I'm pretty sure that I can ask any male who has a family, the biggest fear for a man would be what happens to his family if he's no longer. So this incident has not only troubled just one Black man's family, but an entire country. Together, we all are mourning. We're all hurting. And if you saw that video, that's trauma. To see police officers handcuff a man and beat him senseless.
Right.
The man could not fight for his life. And for an officer, and I'm not quoting the exact, I hope they stump him, but you're supposed to be protecting me. I don't care what anyone done, that is not the way to do things. And that affects me, even as a woman, because I'm now worried for my brother. I'm worried for my husband. I'm even worried for my son to know that even my son, we had an incident where he stepped back from the police with fear. That's a problem. Because if that's me as a mental health professional and as a mom, to know that my 3-year-old took a step back from the police due to a poor encounter that I have had with a police officer. So with that incident, for those who have had that encounter, it messes up our mental health.
Wow.
So we can go deep in like so many different ways with this Tyree Nichols issue.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And I'm going to mention something, and Mr. Michael Kubu will chime in. He'll know more about this probably than I will, because he actually, he's been around longer than me. So back in the day, they used to like kill black men in front of their families, in front of their children, as a mechanism to keep the rest of the slaves in line, to keep the other slaves in line, in a sense. And I'll let Michael Kubu expound on that, to try to bring what happened back in the day, with the Willie Lynch type of things going on, and today. Is there any parallel in that? But it's obvious that the beatings was done by a black group of black men, so it's kind of not the same thing, but it sort of is the same thing. What you think, Michael Kudu, on that?
I want to start with several years ago, actually a couple of decades ago. I was doing private investigative work with the Man of Color Allen's investigative agency, Robert Allen. And during that time, a lot of work that was being done with the agency was 18B cases. 18B were court-appointed cases, and a lot of work we were doing was to find evidence to exonerate wrongly convicted individuals. And coming out of our experience of enslavement, many of our people are traumatized already, traumatized from the experience of psychological and physical terrorism from the court system that begins from our enslavement, when there were two forms of enforcement during that period. The first form of enforcement was from the owner, because at that point, our people were considered property. And the owner would viciously abuse people. If you ever saw that movie, 12 Years a Slave, think back to when the individual played that part and he was hung up from a tree so that he could only stand on his tippy toes.
Wow.
And the other individuals on the plantation were so terrorized that they wouldn't even look at him, they would peek at him. And then they took us to church and taught us a religion, not for spiritual purposes, but to make us better at being enslaved. more compliant at being enslaved. The next level of enforcement was the overseer. The overseer was the same as us, looked the same, enslaved, but they were given authority over the other individuals in enslavement. Notice I'm not using the term slave as an identity.
Okay.
Slave is not an identity, but our propaganda narrative has always been, this is February. So February has been designated as Black His Story Month. And I said it like that to emphasize the fact that that's 3 words. Personally, I do not use his story to define our chronology as a people. His story is his story as a conqueror and enslaver and a kidnapper of our people. His story is used to define our story, but as soon as you say history in relationship to us, it subordinates us as a people. So how can our people claim to be an original people when the reference to history immediately subordinates us to his chronology? So now the overseer in that paradigm, although they had a dark face, had the power attributed to them, which really wasn't true power because the overseer was also subservient and would get whipped as well. So when you look at the instance with Tyree Nichols, they are defined as so-called police officers. But when you saw the video, when they stopped the vehicle, there was no police action whatsoever. Meaning, the normal course of events, when the police officer stops for a traffic stop, they ask for a license, registration, and insurance card. You didn't hear none of that. As soon as they stopped him, they ran up on the car and told him to get the F out the car, snatched him out the car and began to beat him. So that wasn't a police action. That wasn't a police action. That was a targeted action. So when our people witnessed that, and I'm going back to what I said a little while ago, when our people witnessed that, the witnessing of that is already from a standpoint of being terrorized into our consciousness on a daily basis. You may not think that our people are terrorized because we live in the 21st century right now. However, the basis for our consciousness comes out of the constant terrorism of enslavement. Meaning that from the Willie Lynch standpoint, watching our people being tied between 2 horses and have tar poured on them instead of fire, and they whip the horses in each direction and rip our men apart. Having our women bound to a tree and having the fetus cut out of the woman and it drops and dies. Those are terroristic acts that are inculcated in our DNA. So I heard the sister say we're free. We're not free. How can one be free when our entire consciousness is derived from acts of terrorism? So what you witness with Tyree Nichols was the overseer, not a police officer, the overseer to enforce not only to Tyree Nichols, but to all of us who witnessed that to stay in your place. To stay in your place.
Latricia, what you got? What do you think on that? On this, what are you thinking over there?
I'm gonna say it's a lot, and I think it hit so hard because it's right at home, and it's never really happened at home like this for us. So it was a lot, and I'm not gonna say I watched the video because I didn't, because I already knew what it was. So it was no reason for me to watch it and make myself angry or, like he said, have more fear about it. But I'm a firm believer that what you do affects other people, so, and it's a trickle down effect. I mean, my son came to me and he was like, Mom, if I get pulled over by the police, I feel like I should just keep going because they did this to him and he didn't do anything wrong. So just like she said earlier, we have to prep our children, especially our young Black boys, to do certain things because they Black, to make sure they don't get hurt, to make sure we can make sure they get back home, because they're Black. They don't have to do that with other people. And I'm not racist or anything like that or prejudiced or nothing like that, but everybody else don't have to go through what we go through. And they don't have to prep their children like we do to make sure they get home from school or he gets back home from going to hang out with his friends or anything like that. We are the only people who really have to do that. And it's really sad because we shouldn't have to do that. And like he said, I mean, I can see what he's saying, the trickle down effect, from history. It's kind of like having high blood pressure. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA. And it's the same thing with us. It's really still in us because you're constantly living there. It's like we've never left that place.
That's correct. That's right. That's right. It just rehashes itself, really. You see something like that. And Miss Queen, like again, I want to go back to this because for me, it was a double shock to see 5 Black officers, and back in the day, there was a song, it was by NWA, and it's coming to my mind. There was a Caucasian cop ended up coming up to the scene, and there's a line in the record that says Black police showing out for the white cop, and I wonder how much of that took place, but the Caucasian cop didn't go to the second site, on it. Could you chime in on that a little bit, Ms. Queen, on that portion of it?
Well, I'm with what is her name? I'm with Miss Jones. I really didn't watch most of it. I saw maybe I want to say 15 seconds of the camera that was from the light pole. Um, it was so tough. I just literally just said no, and I just started. I like literally walked out my parents' house, and I'm in tears.
Wow.
But for that, I'm going to say I'm going to consider this as a modern day slavery. The police are just the slave owners. That is exactly the best that I can say is modern day slavery from our own African American community.
Yeah. I want to take a second too. Another guest came in, my guy, DJ Amar Mansour. He's on with us. He's coming with us from Salvador, Bahia, Brazil. You want to introduce
Peace,
yourself?
how you doing?
My guy.
Peace, how you doing, everybody? Sorry I'm late. I just got off of work, so.
Yeah, and I know. Have you guys heard much of this? What is the tone in Brazil about this? I'm sure the word kind of got around that this happened right there, and
A little bit. They don't really give it much light. It kind of they touched on it like the day it happened, but they don't really talk about it too much. They're definitely not giving it as much light as George Floyd, and I really think that's on purpose, though.
yeah. And see, that's another thing. The George Floyd thing is like, because it was white officer, it just boom, But here we is. This is a terrible situation. I mean, George Floyd was bad, but this was just ridiculously inhumane, and for it to be kind of not, talked about as much. And then in actuality, they stopped talking about it because what was it, yesterday, Latricia, or the day? I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. We had a police officer here that actually, I'm sorry,
he got shot. The one that
yeah,
got
he got
shot.
shot in the head here and died. At the doing a routine. I guess he was going up to the guy trying to see what he was doing in the library or something like that. And the guy pulled out a gun, shot him in the head, and then the suspect ended up getting killed also. But that seemed to have taken the lead now in the story, as opposed to actually Tyree Nichols. I don't know if if you guys noticed that, but that's what's being talked about now, not Tyree Nichols.
I mean, a lot of times they do that though. They'll switch it up so it can. I think it's on purpose, but it'll get switched up so you won't deal with it or think about it or talk about it like you'll forget about it, which you're not going to forget about it. And I'm telling you, like, I had a Caucasian police officer tell me, he said, it's worse than Rodney King. And to hear him say that was terrible, because I'm like, I really don't want to see that. As a mother, I don't want to see that. For his mother, I don't want to see it. Because to hear his mother, him yelling for crying for his mother, I'm a mother. You don't want to hear your baby crying, So to hear that, it brings tears to me. I cannot watch that. I can't. And it keeps happening. So it's like the only difference is it happened at home. That's the difference with us now. It happened closer to home, and we're used to seeing it all the time. It's like it's normal.
Yeah.
So,
could I add something to the conversation?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Normally, when any of us gets pulled over, you're going to get pulled over because the police put their lights on you.
Correct.
So there's a psychological action that can be taken to disarm the consciousness of the police. When you see the police officer put the lights on you, pull over and stop. Pull over and stop. And I can say that from experience. I'm driving through Virginia several years ago, doing 65 in the 50-mile zone. As I'm riding up, I see the police with the radar gun. I shoot past them, and I see him step into the vehicle, pull out. I know he's coming behind me. So when I see that, I pull over. I just stop. He pulls in behind me. I roll down my window. And the first thing he says to me is, I smell weed coming out your car. Because I had been smoking. I said, yes, officer. He says, do you have any more? I say, no. Now, I'm coming from New York, driving through Virginia on my way down to Georgia. I got my drums in the vehicle, getting ready to come down to do a performance. So he asked me again, do you have any more weed? Then he says to me, can I have your license and registration? So I'm driving with no license. I have a travel document as a more, and I give that to him. I said, this is my travel document. Then he asked me, do you have any more? I said, no, officer. Do you have any more in the vehicle? I said, no. I had a little bit more in my pants pocket. So after the third time he asked me, I reach into my pants pocket and give him that little bit amount. Then he tells me, before I give him that, he said, well, we'll bring the dogs out and let them smell what's in the car. Now I'm loaded down. I got my drums, my travel gear, and everything. Gave him my travel document and the registration. No license. Next thing I know, 2 more police cars pull up. Then a third police car pull up. Brother, the officer tells me, to go sit on the side rail and come out the vehicle and go sit on the side rail, which I do. Through all of that, when they looked to go to search the vehicle and saw I had so much stuff in the vehicle, they decided not to search it. They gave me 2 tickets and pulled off. I tell you that story because pulling over disarmed the aggressive nature from the police. It's a psychological condition that they are attached to when they pull somebody over, for them to be aggressive, because they're going to automatically assume you're going to keep going. You're going to keep going. Pull over and stop. Do not keep going, because it angers them. When Tyree Nichols got away and ran, and the cops had to run after him, that made them even more aggressive, because now the cops got to run after you. There's a book, I can't think of the name of it, written by a Black police officer who was a cop in the 50s and 60s. And in that book, he spoke about Black police officers have to be more aggressive on people of color in order for them to establish their credibility with the white police officers on the force. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it's something. Yeah. Queen, I'll go ahead. You were about to say something?
I actually was. I wanted to chime in with him. And as I spoke about the fear, and then Ms. Jones also spoke on how her son stated that he's going to continue to go on. This is why the fear is serious. I'm going to read something. It says, fear is a chain reaction in the brain that starts with a stressful stimulus and ends with the release of chemicals that cause a racing heart, fast breathing, and energized muscles, among other things, as we know as fight or flight response. In this moment, flight or fight or flight response is where we're at with the police. It's because of the fear. When we see that police car, our mind says go and run. I don't think it's necessarily something that, oh, I see the police, let me go. It is a natural body response. It is stimulated from events such as Tyree Nichols, such as other beatings within from police brutality. So then that is the problem, because if we're dealing with fight or flight, what's going to happen in our community is we're going to run. You see a police officer, for instance, myself, I have my license, I have my insurance in my car, I have everything that I'm supposed to have. But when a police officer pass by, I double take my speedometer, ensuring that I am going the speed limit. It is a problem when the police comes, my heart skips beats, it races. I have friends who are cops. So you have people like me who are like, okay, I have friends who are within the police community, and then I have those who have proven themselves as bad cops. And they assimilate from the simulation of all these events are happening. So can we speak on that, about how the community is going to respond, like our nervous systems? Our nervous system's going to tell us to maybe, like, even if they don't run, it's just shut down. And I just sat there, and that's another way that fight or flight can happen. So what do we do to protect our community from that?
Wow. Yeah, epinephrine is what you're talking. Epinephrine. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, because that automatically happened when you would see a Caucasian officer, but now it's going to happen. It doesn't matter who. I've had a couple officers behind me today, and I was like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean? It just automatically, comes to your mind. But also, I want to touch on this, Ms. Queen, the sense of I'll speak on me. That sense of hopelessness that you get here, of like, okay, we already got to suffer this at the hands of Caucasian officers, Caucasian people,
Mhm,
people of other races here in this country. The sense of hopelessness is like, okay, does anyone care about us here? In this
mhm.
country whatsoever? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. We can look at social media. For example, if we see, for example, I'm not sure if you all have TikTok or how many of our viewers have a TikTok. We are oppressed in and on TikTok within social media. For example, if you were to put hashtag Black Lives Matter, your video is going to either be removed or they're going to shadow ban you, which shadow ban means they're not going to push out your content. They're going to stop your content from circling in the rotation for the videos. We're oppressed there. We're oppressed in the education system. My experiences in the mental health field, the African American community is extremely oppressed there as well. As an African American clinician, I myself have been oppressed against by Caucasian clinicians. I'm like, I have the same credentials as some of them. And I'm like, for the ones who are at the bachelor level for mental health professionals, I'm like, I have one up. It's also there in the professionalism in our workforce, especially us within the medical field. Mental health professionals, we're still in the mental health, into the medical field. So you have it there. It's within our school systems too. We see that there's a separation. Where's the separation? Why is it one particular in the low community where there's mostly African Americans, low income, the schools lack resources? And the Caucasian schools who are in Caucasian, but more of majority of Caucasians, their school system have more money. Why is that? So we're seeing racism, oppression within our Black community in all of those places.
Well, that's because the United States never wanted us to never wanted us in the country after they abolished slavery. They didn't want us here. Well, there, because I'm actually in Brazil, but their plan was similar to what happened in Argentina. Argentina basically eliminated and exterminated all of their Africans that they kidnapped and brought over for the slave trade. And then the ones that they didn't kill fled into the neighboring countries. The United States wanted to do that, but when the civil rights happened in all of our movements, they weren't able to do that. So they've been trying to figure out how to do that since then.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
So
like
that's
to
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael Cool.
I like to speak on two things. I want to go back to the statement that the African Queen stated that we are free. And I want to draw the distinction between what she said and that statement, because what she just said demonstrates that we are not free. So that's one of our mistakes. The next thing I want to talk about is it's the police job to catch you. So if our people constantly could succumb to the fight or flight syndrome through fear and try to outrun the police, you are walking into their trap for you. Lastly, speaking in terms of the degree to which our people are continually oppressed in this country, I want to talk about the MAGA philosophy, because people have looked at the Make America Great from Trump that was in the White House, and they have misconstrued what that means. What they have just done with Congresswoman Omar. And what DeSantis is doing with the educational system is what Make America Great is about. Make America Great means that there are too many people of color in the government making laws and policies that affect white folks. To that extent, because our people are still a slave population. We're still a slave population under the illusion that we think we are free. The problem with our slave population not getting the type of results that are being sought by us is because our people still fight for them. Our people still fight their wars. You want to make a difference? Stop going into the military. Stop fighting their wars. Come out boycott the military. Boycott everything that they use on us to benefit and prop up their system. Because our currency is being bankrupted because our people believe that we're American. We believe we have bought into the system, thinking that we can walk down the street with signs, no justice, no peace. Whose streets? Our streets. It doesn't work. It doesn't. Malcolm told you in the beginning, America is not nonviolent. Why should we be nonviolent? Now, I'm not saying we should fight against them because you're not going to win a shooting war. But if they're using us to fight their wars, stop fighting their wars. Because what's going to happen, and it's already been happening, they get us in their military institutions and send us to Africa to fight their wars. Right now, you got the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin. You think he's there for black people? Biden just had a summit with African countries. You think that was for African countries? They crafted an agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zambia to mine cobalt for the benefit of Africa. I was on the phone today with a white guy who told me that he has business partners that fly into Africa with cash on private planes and take out gold and avoid any of the customs charges that the United States or other countries impose because they deal directly with the kingdoms and they're robbing gold. So where is it that our men and our women have fostered the collective consciousness that defines us as an ethnic group and a cultural people? Right now, we think we have a culture because we do hip hop and we got the value system of white folks. That's not a culture. That's a pseudo culture. So our people have to develop a consciousness based upon collective consciousness that brings about collective action, that brings about collective result. That don't mean we should think all alike. That means our focus should be on the lifting and the establishment of our value system that protects our women, children, and elders and lifts our community as a distinct enclave of people that begin to protect one another.
So I think he said begin to protect one another.
I'm sorry?
Patricia? I think the last part you said was we begin to protect one another.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen.
That's true. We don't come to each other's defense at all. We rather film it.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And see, that goes to mindset development. And mindset development is an instrument that was implemented through Willie Lynch to make us think what we think. To make us think what we think. And what we think is based upon fear. Because the fear of the fact that the acts of terrorism that's been inbred in our DNA from the period of enslavement. Now, you're talking about a 400-year, 500-year period of enslavement that's bred into us. That's bred into us. So how do our people reverse that?
I would say healing
Yes.
is going to be the healing. And how
Yes.
does healing happen? And that's going to go to when you spoke on the protesting that is often done with the marching and no justice, no peace. That is a start, but that's not going to bring change. It's a part of the change, but it's not the full change. The full change is going to occur when we bring more policies and laws. All policies, in order for something to be a law, it has to first be a policy. So the healing is going to occur when we are protected and we feel protected. And that's going to go to policy and laws. And then we're going to go deeper. This is when the community has to come together. This is when the community needs to stop the separation and come together for that healing. If we want that healing, then we need that protection. When you feel protected, then we can start to heal. So we need more policies and laws implemented because what's going to stop police officers for their behavior, incorporate more policies because the officers would not have done what they have done. Other officers will not do, and I can't say they will not do. They can be accountable for their actions by incorporating more policies and laws. If a crime is made, but there's no law being broken, then nothing happens. And it is what's kind of happening within our community. We want that justice, we want that peace, but we need those laws. So therefore, I'm educating my Black community. We need to get together. We need to stand together. We have been through so much. We've been oppressed. We've been hurt. We have to work harder. Come together and let's heal together. Because if we know how strong we are, that is why they fear us. And here go again that word. They fear us, so they try to shut us down. So we would heal if we come together, create more policies and more laws for our African American community. And hearing from my brother up here in Brazil, it's not only that it's a United States problem, it looks like it's an earth problem.
Yeah, it's definitely discrimination everywhere against people of African descent, whether it be here or Brazil or several other, a lot of other countries. But I do want to back up a little bit and talk about the fact that just even with this situation, normally when it happens like the Rodney King beating or George Floyd, it takes a long time to get the officers arrested and even brought to justice. And the weird thing about this is they brought these 5 Black officers to justice and boom, immediately. It didn't take long. It didn't tarry. It didn't drag out. And it's like, wow, now do you guys see this? I mean, they were brought to justice immediately, and they were working for the establishment, which seems like a double slap in the face. So now we're on TV talking about, well, if this happens again and it's, with the other, with a Caucasian officer, they need to be brought to justice immediately. So again, we have to they should have been doing it anyways. We shouldn't have had to lose someone else at the hands of Black officers to get that point across, and that kind of bothers me with that.
I was speaking with the author Verda Olayinka, whose husband is a Nigerian. She wrote a book. And I was speaking that it seems like there's a secret society of police officers that in order for you to be a part of that secret society, you got to kill a black man. And I mentioned that, and she said to me that she went to a private party in New York at a mansion of some very wealthy white people. And at this party, there was a fireplace in the room. And on the mantle of the fireplace, there were various trophies. And each one of the trophies was a penis. So she said she looked a little closer at the trophies, at the plate on the trophies. And the plate on the trophy were given to people who had killed, to police officers who had killed black people. That's what she told me. And she wrote it in her book. So I want to share that
Wow.
because officers killing our people is too common and it's something to think about. She told me that was what she witnessed with her own eyes. And I wanted to share that because our people need to not discount any reality of this prison system that we live in, thinking that we're free.
Yeah, it's like asking the snake to go against its nature. You know, a snake is a snake and it's gonna bite you because that's its nature. Yeah, so like Queen said, you know, if we waiting for policies and laws that protect us from the nature of the beast ain't going they're not gonna create laws that are gonna help them take care of us because they don't want to take care of us in the first place. You know, so we're asking, you know, the snake not to be a snake or the snake to protect its prey. You know, it goes against the snake's nature. We need to learn how to protect ourselves. You know, that's why I mean that's one of the reasons why I made the decision I made to come out here. You know, it's a little better in the States, you know, but you know, at least I'm not in the United States because I had to make a choice. You know, but I don't see that the United States making any laws that truly benefit the Afro descendant population in the States anytime soon.
This is
You
where
know,
our African American. Sorry.
until we start, you know, making our own changes within our community, you know, learning how to defend ourselves, learning how to defend each other, uh, you know, stop filming each other being brutalized and beaten, and start helping each other to not be brutalized and beaten, and start making plans to, you know, have safe spaces or making exit strategies from the states. You know, when we start, you know, moving our money to other places and stop spending our money in the snake system, then they're gonna start like, oh, okay, we gotta, you know, they messing with our money. We need to start, you know, making some changes for real. But as long as we continue to feed their system, um, you know, and circulate their money, I mean, you know, African descendants in the states, you know, control almost $600 billion of the economy, but we don't own much of the economy. You know, so our dollar and our culture and our everything about us is what fuels the system. And but until we stop that, they're just going to keep doing what they do because it works for them. You know, nobody's going to change how things are if it's beneficial to them. Like us being protected is not beneficial to them, so they're not going to do it.
That's for certain. That's for sure. Miss Jones, got anything?
I mean, I kind of agree with what they're saying. It's basically African American people. We're the only ones who really don't stick together. We're the only ones that don't try to help each other out. We're the only ones that we just not there for each other. We'll walk away from each other before we try to help each other. And like she said, we got to heal, but we got to change the way we think. If we don't change the way we think, how can we expect to move forward and make any type of changes? Because you can't continue to think the same way and expect a change, and you're still doing the same thing. And I think that's one of our problems. We're doing the same thing over and over. You know what I'm saying? We just, history keeps repeating itself, and nobody's stopping and saying, okay, what can we do to change it and make things better for us? Nobody's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when our people boycott the military, you will get a lot of attention.
I bet they would. That's a lot.
You get a lot of attention. But our people lack courage.
Yeah.
Our people don't have the courage to boycott the military. Our people don't have the courage to walk away from supporting this system because we believe that this is our system, that we are American. How can you be an American when those people that run the country don't consider you an American?
Mm-hmm.
They don't, you know, I look at our people. Are you familiar with the battered wife syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
The battered wife syndrome is where a man abuses his wife, but she's so scared to leave him, and she stays with him through that abuse until he finally kills her. Our people are the battered wife of America. They've been abusing us and killing us and raping our women and murdering us and incarcerating us ever since our enslavement. And we still think that they're going to give us the opportunity. And notice I said, give us something. They're not going to give us nothing. So our people have to develop the ability for a collective consciousness. And I don't mean we have to think alike, but we have to be able to develop a system of behavior that allows us the benefit of our spiritual and physical and mental energy to raise and protect our people, to bring us to the respect of the world's humanity. And until we do that, this conversation is going to keep going in circles.
African Queen, we talked about something earlier that I want to bring up here because it's very important about the need for us as a people here to not shun therapy or counseling.
Mm-hmm.
That we really need to believe that you don't have to be crazy to go seek counseling.
Right.
Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? It relates to the healing process.
Absolutely. Well, let me at first explain to the people if they are not aware of what is therapy. In mental health therapy, one of the types of therapy is talk therapy. And within talk therapy, there's even more types of talk therapy. Therapy helps us to understand our emotions, our feelings, why we behave the way we behave, and why are we conditioned the way we are conditioned. Ideally, America, particularly African American community, we view therapy in a negative way. It's you don't tell people your business. What happens in this house stays in this house. We were conditioned at a young age to internalize our emotions. When we internalize our emotions, we then find it difficult. I'm trying my best not to speak clinical terms because I'm going to lose a lot of people. So we have to understand that we need to process. I love, for example, if you and I were on the phone traveling, let's say I traveled to Brazil. I'm going to use Brazil because you're the furthest. If we're on the phone with each other and I'm trying to get to your house and your phone died, how can I get to your house? This is my first time in Brazil. How can I get to your house? You never told me the address. How do you suppose that I'm going to get to your home?
Yep.
Just like a legit question.
Yeah. There's no
Yeah,
way.
not.
Absolutely. That is how our brains operate. That connection is taken away because I cannot speak to him to say, where are you? So therapy is like that charger. You charge it up, which means is you connect your phone to the charger. That is that connection. Therefore, once that connection is made, you're able to pick up your phone, make that phone call, communicate with me, and tell me where you are. That is the importance of therapy. And we're going to go to that word again, healing. We have to heal. We have to process. We have to understand why when I see the police, my nervous system tells me to run. And for those some of you, you have to understand that with the fight or flight, sometimes we cannot control those emotions because the logic part of our brain is then shut down, which means the logic part of your brain that says, don't run. If you run from the police, they're going to chase you, giving them cause to unalive you or to beat you. So we have to understand that therapy helps us heal. And therapy, and I understand some, well, I don't want to tell everybody my business. But there's a thing called the HIPAA guidelines, which prevents and prohibits your professional to speak about it. Then we go a little bit deeper. Some people can say, well, I tried therapy. It wasn't for me. But there's several questions. What type of therapy? You have CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. It teaches us to change our thought pattern. As Miss Lauren said, in order for change to happen, our mindset has to change. That is what
Hmm.
CBT would teach you. Then we have dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, that helps us with our behavior patterns. And for us who deal with trauma, I'm just going to give you two, well, one more. And you have EMDR therapy. This is eye movement, decentralization, and reprocessing. This is where we're trying to soften the trauma experience. Meaning, for example, I see the police. It's going to lessen your fear of the police. And it's going to help you to process your emotions so you don't automatic run to that fight or flight. Because fight or flight doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I get up and physically run. Flight and fight or flight can happen here. I can just sit here and just be frozen. Or my nervous system has told my body, danger is here. Your body's going to protect you. It's going to shut down. So healing is going to happen in therapy. And this is why I'm for therapy for everyone. And one final thing, your therapist may not be your therapist. As a mental health professional, I may not be for you. And that's okay because you have to find the mental health professional that you can connect with and not give up hope on therapy because of one bad experience with one bad professional. Well, I wouldn't say they were bad, with a mental health professional that you did not connect with.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what we're talking about, and in the black community, you know what I mean. Just I'll say it like that. Um, man, it's kind of like taboo. You would see a therapist? You must be crazy. I mean, we have all these misnomers about therapy, actually. And I told you earlier, I actually saw a therapist for the first time last year, early in the year. I was going some stuff, and I went there for one thing, and then I ended up going all the way back to my childhood and all this stuff. We walked it all the way up to today, and I learned a lot about myself, in that time period. So it was actually a good experience. Michael Kubu had to drop off. He had to go and to another previous engagement that he had also. So,
Mhm.
but great guy. I mean, he's got a lot of wisdom. He's been around a long time. He's here in Africa and all types of events and stuff like that. He's talking to a lot of important people. So hopefully we'll have him back on the show also. Anybody got any parting shots? We're running, on upward towards an hour or so. So anybody got any part? We can talk about this for like 2 or 3 hours, but
Yes.
I know, but but maybe we'll do another episode of it, to extend it, and get into some more specific things. Tonight was a good discussion of generalities of where we need to go and things like that. It's a start. So, Lamar, you got any parting shots you want to say?
All I can say is, like we said, you change your mindset and start thinking about really survival mode. We're at war. We're not going to win a shooting war, like my dad said. But we need to start thinking about how to protect ourselves and where we're going to go to protect ourselves and how we're going to get there and how we're going to feed ourselves while we travel and how we're going to feed ourselves when we get there. You know, anything we do in the United States soil is behind enemy lines, no matter how we look at it, no matter how much money we have, and no matter how big we get, we're still behind enemy lines and we can never truly be free at that point. You know, we're always going to have to look over our shoulder if we're there. So, you know, I'm an advocate for getting out. The movie Get Out, like that's me. 'Cause I didn't think twice. So.
Yeah, it's Queen.
Yes, I'm going to end with this. I invite each and every last one of you to find a therapist. You'll be amazed of what you're offered. Just call your insurance company to see what is offered. Find a therapist. Get to know yourself. It's truly time for healing. So let's heal.
Okay, Latricia.
I agree with her with the therapy, because a lot of people, African American people, we think that, oh, you're crazy if you go see a therapist. Sometimes you need somebody to talk to outside of your friends, your family, and you need somebody to listen to you. Some people just need a person to listen. And like you said, a lot of times when you go to speak about one thing, it takes you back to the beginning, which helps you to figure out, this is why I act the way I do, or this is why I say what I say, or this is why I think the way I think. So if you go back and do that, I feel like it'd be really beneficial to a lot of people to go back and revisit the reason why I am the way I am. And it'll help a lot of people. And I think it'll save a lot of people from a lot of things like suicide and drug addiction and different things that we do to harm ourselves because we're trying to medicate and take away the pain of whatever we're dealing with that we don't deal with. So I'm for therapy.
I know, right? I think, yeah, I'm definitely for it. I mean, because it's definitely needed in our community. I mean, the healing part is, Lord, I wish it could happen. I really do, because there are so many areas that we need to be healed as a people overall. Multiple wounds. I mean, we if you've been equating it to gunshots, we might have 50 shots. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. I mean, this, that. There's so many issues plaguing the Black community here in this country, and people have all sorts of alternatives on how they deal with that. Some to say, hey, you know what, I'm out. I just can't. Some get a little bit, and they're able to feed their families, drive around in nice cars, and they don't feel it as much or something like that, maybe. So they, I've seen them not care about the have-nots. The haves don't care about the have-nots. Tongue twister. But I just think until we as a community overall come together and realize, I mean, the men have to realize the pain of the women have to realize the pain of the men, and then we have to take all that and come together and come up with a collective plan at this point to fix it. And I'm not talking about relationships, I'm just talking about anything. I'm talking about you see a woman in distress on the side of the road, she needs a tire change, anything like that. We need to be looking out for one in society as a whole. And that's my part of the message, that let's look out for one another. I'm sure, I mean, that happened, that incident happened in front of some people's houses. There's no way, you're not telling me that no one looked out their window or out of their door and saw this guy being hit and beat and all this stuff like that. Somebody came out, we too nosy not to come out and look now. We didn't look now. Come outside. If somebody would just simply come outside, I can think of a lot of things looking 2020, but if somebody just simply come out, ho, what y'all doing? They would have had to stop. But this idea of not getting involved, not helping one another, is going to have to stop at some point, or we're not. I'm sorry to say, we're just not going to make it. As a whole, we'll have a few, like if you take 10 people, okay, they'll get 3 something, and 7, you'll get 3 a lot, 2 maybe get in the middle, and then 5 poor, extremely. So that that's kind of the way it's going here, and it's sad, but it's the way it is. So, but you guys, thanks for joining the panel, Miss African Queen. We
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back. On some other topics that we talked about, and I really enjoyed you being on here. Thanks again, Lamar, because I know it's pretty late in Brazil. They're 3 hours ahead, you
1
guys.
o'clock in the morning, 1:15.
Yeah, he's putting the late night. He's putting the late night. It's probably what about 1 o'clock?
It's 1 a.m.
It's 1:15. Yeah, and I just got finished DJing. I just got here from traveling, and I had to go straight to my gig. So I'm beat.
Wow.
But I said I would be here. So
also, you guys, I know, right? And I meant to tell Michael Kubu about this also, too, because Latricia, please mention your platform before we go. With
all right.
Yeah.
All right. Although I'm his co-host, I am also an actor and a director. We have a Black-owned film company. It's called Platinum Films. It's Platinum Films. We have an app you can download to your phone on iPhone, Roku TV, Android phone. It's a black app with platinum writing on it. And you can find us there with all types of films and series that we're doing right now. So we're trying to get it happening.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, that's dope, huh?
Congratulations.
She's an actress,
Director.
And my bad. And a director, all that stuff,
Yeah, you gotta give her credentials. Don't do that.
I know.
Oh man, she's dope. Oh, she dope. I tell her all the time.
Congratulations. Come out to Brazil and film some stuff. We got a bunch of beautiful scenery that make amazing backdrops for some films.
I know. I would love to do that.
Yeah, that's the plan. For the hopefully for the TKT 901 rooftop party in December. Hopefully, she is able to come out with us. So that's a whole nother episode, y'all. You know what I mean? But yeah, we're trying to get over there, and we're doing music there also. We're already doing music there, trying to bridge that gap. So, I mean, it's just logical for the acting part to follow, So, and we're just connecting and having people work with each other. So, it's just part of that connecting and bridging the gaps and things like that, So, anyway, you guys, that's it. We're gonna get out of here, and until next time.
See you later.